Have you ever heard of the Sullivan brothers? 5 of them, all serving together on the same ship during World War II. It was a proud moment for their family in Waterloo, Iowa. But then, tragedy struck. Their ship, the USS Juno, was torpedoed and sank. All 5 brothers were lost at sea. This heartbreaking story led to a new military policy in the United States, the sole survivor policy, designed to protect families from losing all their children in the war. But the Sullivans weren't the only ones. All across the world, during the great wars of the 20th century, families were torn apart by similar tragedies. Today, we were going to journey back in time, not to the grand strategies of generals or the turning points of battles, but to the quiet, personal stories of brothers who went to war together and the families who waited for them back home. Imagine this. It's the early 1900s. Life is simpler. Communities are tight-knit. Brothers grow up side by side, sharing everything from a bedroom to their dreams for the future. They work the same fields, chase the same girls, and get into the same trouble. They are inseparable. Then, the call to war comes. For many young men, it's an adventure, a chance to prove their manhood, to serve their country. And who better to face this great unknown with than your own brother? The one person you've always trusted, the one person who's always had your back. So, they enlist together. They promise their anxious mother they'll look out for each other. They march off, side by side, full of youthful confidence and brotherly love. This wasn't an uncommon sight. In Britain, during the First World War, there were things called PALS battalions. The idea was to let men from the same town, the same factory, or even the same street enlist and serve together. It was a brilliant recruiting tool. Men were more willing to sign up if they knew they'd be with their friends, their neighbors, their brothers. You can see the appeal, right? Facing the horrors of the trenches would be slightly less terrifying with a familiar face next to you. But this brilliant idea had a devastating flaw. When the PALS battalion suffered heavy casualties, the losses weren't spread out across the country. They were concentrated in one small community. A single day of heavy fighting could wipe out an entire generation of men from one town. A single shell could widow half the women on a single street. And for families with multiple sons serving in the same unit, the risk was unimaginable. Let's look at a story from the other side, the German side. During World War I, 2 brothers, Franz and Erich, were known in their village for being inseparable. They were both talented artists. When the war broke out, they were assigned to the same infantry regiment on the Western Front. They wrote letters home, filled with sketches of life in the trenches, trying to shield their family from the grim reality. They'd write about the camaraderie, the strange moments of beauty in a war-torn landscape. But they also wrote to each other private notes of encouragement. Stay safe, Erich would write to Franz. I'll see you after the next push. They were each other's anchor in a world of mud and fear. One day, during the Battle of the Somme, their unit was ordered to go over the top. It was a suicide mission into a hell machine gun fire. Franz was hit. Erich, seeing his brother fall, abandoned his post and ran across no man's land to his side. He tried to carry Franz back to the safety of the trench, but he was hit too. They died there, together, in the mud of northern France. Back home, their parents received 2 telegrams on the same day. Their village lost 2 of its brightest lights. The letters and sketches stopped. All that was left was a silence that spoke volumes about their loss. This story, and countless others like it, were repeated in villages across France, Britain, Australia, Canada, and Germany. The promise to look out for each other became a shared, tragic fate. Now, let's fast forward to World War II. You'd think the lessons from the First World War would have changed things. In some ways, they did. Military command was more aware of the devastating impact of concentrating losses. But the bond of brotherhood was just as strong. And sometimes, fate or military logistics just brought brothers together on the same battlefield anyway. Consider the story of the Nineland brothers from Tonawanda, New York. 4 brothers served in the U.S. military during World War II. By 1944, 3 of them were believed to have been killed in action within a few days of each other. 2 were in Normandy, and 1 was in the Pacific. The Army, upon learning of the family's immense loss, located the 4th and last surviving brother, Fritz Nyland, who was a paratrooper with the 101st Airborne. They found him in France shortly after the D-Day landings and sent him home to his grieving mother. His story is incredible. Can you imagine the mix of emotions? The survivor's guilt, the relief, the overwhelming grief for his brothers. The story of the Nyland brothers actually became the inspiration for the film Saving Private Ryan. And there's a small twist of hope in their story. One of the brothers, Edward, who was presumed dead in the Pacific, had actually been captured by the Japanese and was a prisoner of war. He was eventually liberated at the end of the war and returned home. So, in the end, 2 of the 4 brothers survived. But their family still paid a terrible price. Okay? These stories aren't just from the Allied side. Okay? In every country touched by the war, families held their breath, praying for the safe return of their sons. The emotional toll was immense. Think of the parents. Every knock on the door, every official-looking envelope could be the news they dreaded. And to receive that news twice, 3 times, or even 5 times, like the Sullivans' parents. It's a grief that's impossible for most of us to comprehend. It's a wound that never truly heals. And what about the brother who came home? He carried the weight of his survival for the rest of his life. He was the one who had to look his parents in the eye. He was the one who had to live with the ghosts of the battlefield and the ghost of his brother. Many of them never spoke of the war. The memories were too painful, the guilt too heavy. They had to build a new life on the foundations of unimaginable loss. The sole survivor policy, enacted after the Sullivan tragedy, was a direct response to these heartbreaks. It's a formal recognition by the military that while service and sacrifice are noble, no family should have to sacrifice everything. The policy aims to spare a family the loss of their last surviving child. It's not a get out of a military free card. A service member has to request it, and it's usually about being moved to a non-combat role or being prevented from deploying to a combat zone. It's a compassionate policy born from some of the most painful stories of the war. But even with such policies, the nature of war is chaotic. Brothers can still end up in the same theater of operations, and the bond remains. They will still look for each other, worry about each other, and try to protect each other. It's a fundamental human instinct. When we look back at these wars, it's easy to get lost in the numbers of millions dead, entire cities destroyed. But the real story of war is written in these individual losses. It's in the empty chair at the dinner table. It's in the faded photograph of 2 smiling young men in uniform. It's in a name carved on a small-town war memorial right next to the name of his brother. These stories remind us that behind every statistic is a human being, a family, a community. They remind us of the true cost of conflict. It's not just about land or politics. It's about the loss of brothers, the shattering of families, and the silent grief that echoes through generations. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the past. It's important to remember these personal stories, to honor the sacrifice of these families. If you found this story moving, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's forgotten corners. Let us know in the comments if you have any family stories from the wars you'd be willing to share. We honor their memory by telling their stories. Thanks for watching.